listening to how I read these questions out loud, picking up on the ways that I personalize them, putting them into my language, because I'm challenging you guys to do the same, and then definitely focusing on not what the right answer is, but why, okay? Once again, if you're not doing well on these practice tests, that doesn't mean anything. Do not feel bad about that. What I want to make sure you're doing is you're understanding why you're missing them. That's why this breakdown is very, very important. In fact, I truly believe in the way that I teach and the way that I run class, where most of the learning happens is in this section right here, okay? So let's go ahead and focus on question number 1. It says, when can an insured that has purchased a homeowner's policy sue their insurance company? What was the right answer here?
C.
C is actually the right answer, although D kind of looked good too, didn't it, right? It threw in the word 5 years here, thinking that might have been helpful. That actually put you in the wrong mindset, because look at those next 2 words, after policy expiration. Does it matter 5 years after policy expiration? No, it's 5 years after the date of the loss, guys. So 5 years is, of course, attributable here, but it has nothing to do with after policy expiration. It's 5 years after the loss. Of course, C is the better answer here, though, because it says only after the insured has complied with all policy provisions. You can't even think about suing until you've done that, okay? Number 2, all of the following are insured under comprehensive personal liability. What is comprehensive personal liability? Guys, it's just section 2 of your homeowners. That's all it is, right? So all this question is really asking is which one is an insured or is not an insured underneath homeowners? And of course, there's only one answer here that really kind of stood out, and that was which one?
C.
C, yeah, a friend over 25 years of age. Just because they're a friend and just because they're over 25 years of age doesn't make them an insured. But as you're looking at A, B, and D, all of those are exact definitions of an insured, right? Mm-hmm. Named insured, spouse of the named insured, and a resident relative. Number 3, an insured has a $100,000 combined single limit for liability losses. If covered occurrence causes 80 grand in medical expense, 40 grand in pain and suffering, which results in 8 grand in attorney fees, how much does the policy pay out? The answer here is D. Now, why does it not pay out everything? Why does it not pay out $128,000? It's because of the combined limit, right? $100,000, but you have to know where that $100,000 applies. Would it apply toward medical expense? Yes. Would it apply toward pain and suffering? Yes. Right? Those are where those kind of damages would get applied. But of course, it doesn't pay for 120 there. Why? Because we already hit that limit, didn't we? So 100,000 maxed out. But why does it pay 108? What are attorney fees? They pay in addition to the limits, right? Those are supplemental policy payments. So of course, it does not matter that we maxed out on our limit there, did it? Okay, so that's what I want you to understand is that 100,000 is the max it'll pay for damage awards, but it doesn't matter about attorney fees, right? Attorney fees pay on top. So it's
attorney fees go much higher than that?
Doesn't matter. The insurance company will continue to pay it because it doesn't affect your limit. That's a good question. Number 4, under what circumstances would an insured's garage not be covered by a homeowner's policy?
C.
Yeah, if a client is using it to sell mercantile goods out of their barn, their shed, their garage, then of course, no, that can't be covered underneath your homeowners. We already talked about that. But if it's used by the insured, if it's also a tenant uses it for their car, which is pretty much what A and B are, both of them, and a non-tenant rents it for their car, I said you can make money that way and still have coverage underneath your homeowner's policy. Number 5, all of the following are true about homeowners forms except for which one? Which was my right answer here? D, because that was actually the false one, right? This kind of was like a true-false question. As you're looking at A, B, and C, those are all really good pieces of information that all homeowner forms provide theft. Isn't that right? Right? Whether it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 8, absolutely. They all have theft coverage. The HO2 provides broad form coverage on your dwelling and contents. Yeah, of course it is, right? The HO2 provides broad form on everything. And then the HO3, remember I said this is the one that splits it. And that's what happens here, right? All risk coverage on your dwelling, but only broad form coverage on your contents. And that is true. So A, B, and C are all wrong answers here. Why? Because they were all true. I want to make sure you understand why they were wrong, because it all gave you really good information there. Hopefully you're relearning this. But HO4, number 1, is not an all risk coverage, right? HO4 is not an all risk coverage. It's only a broad form coverage, and it only gives you broad form coverage on your what? Contents, not your dwelling. Okay, so there were two things that were massively wrong with D here. Number 6, all of the following are common exclusions under the homeowner's form except for which one? A is the right answer, but this was a test to make sure we were reading through the whole darn thing again. Because flood damage in of itself, is that going to be covered underneath homeowner's form? No, but if I buy it through the NFIP, what did I do?
You got the coverage.
I got the endorsement, didn't I? Right? I bought it and I added it onto my homeowner, so absolutely, yes, that should be covered here. But any act of war, we already know that's an exclusion. Damage that results from sewer backup or sump pump failure, remember I said that's an exclusion unless you endorse it on. Doesn't say it's being endorsed on here though. And then D, personal property of a resident relative that gets damaged as the result of a what? Leaky basement. And of course, that stuff is all excluded. That's not covered underneath your homeowners. Number 7, the homeowner's policy provides personal property coverage for all of the following except for which one?
D.
Yeah, property of an unrelated border. Why? Because once again, you can't prove what?
It was damaged before.
What's that?
Because it's not ours, so you can't.
Yeah, exactly. You can't prove insurable interest, right? Property of an unrelated border, you can't prove that you had insurable interest in that, so that can't be covered. But the insured while staying at a vacation home, does it matter if your contents are in your home or not? No, right? Your coverage, you could be covered halfway around the world, so A and C, doesn't matter if your contents were inside the house or not. And then B, personal property on the resident's premises, of course it does. Number 8, which of the following would be covered under homeowner's policy coverage C? Which remember, what is C? That is unscheduled personal property, right? That's the generic way of insuring your contents. So if something has been scheduled out, right, it's been set apart, can I also get it covered underneath my unscheduled coverage as well? No, of course not. So A's kind of eliminated here. Property of the named insured's business, right? Of course, that isn't going to be covered underneath coverage C. And then property of a non-related border, just as we addressed in 7, not covered. But why is B the right answer here? Property of relatives who are residing with the named insured, because they are also insureds, right? Of course, their stuff is covered. Why not? Because they are also considered to be an insured. Number 9, which of the following describes a consequential loss? There's only one answer here that made any sense, and that was C, right? Because as you're looking at A, B, and D, those are all describing a loss here, but A, B, and D are all example of what kind of a loss? A direct loss. That is absolutely correct, right? And C actually describes a direct loss as well to begin with, doesn't it? It starts off with a fire damages the insured's house. That's the direct loss, but it causes them an additional cost because they have to live in a motel. That is the indirect loss, also known as consequential. Section 10, coverage D of your homeowner's policy. Out of all 4 of those, would only cover which one of them? Yeah, laundry expense, right? Laundry expenses, that could be considered an out-of-pocket, loss of use kind of coverage. Why? Because look at B, windstorm damage to the roof of the what? So that wouldn't be coverage D, that would be A, yep. And then medical expenses, that's not even talking about property coverage here, which is what B is, so that's easily eliminated. And then detached storage sheds, that would be under coverage what? B, yep, good job. Number 11, under section 1, additional coverages. How much is provided for loss assessment? I told you it was a minimum of how much?
1,000.
1,000, but it could go higher, right? But that was when you're part of an HOA, right? And losses are being assessed. Number 12, an insured suffers damages to 3 trees caused by a covered peril. If the limit for landscaping is $5,000 per occurrence, but only $500 per tree, shrub, and plant, how much of this loss is covered if each tree is worth $1,000 each?
1,500.
It's only going to be $1,500. Why is it not $3,000? They're worth $1,000 each,
It's only covered for 500.
right? It's one of those inside limits, right? $500 per tree, shrub, and plant. It doesn't matter what the occurrence was here. It doesn't matter that you suffered $3,000 in losses. What did matter is you maxed out the per tree, shrub, and plant limit, which was only $500. Okay, so it just became a simple math question at that point. 500 times 3, $1,500. Number 13. The volcanic eruption coverage would exclude damage for which one of those?
D.
Yeah, land shock waves. That's not part of the original eruption, guys. That's blast, ash, lava, all covered by volcanic eruption, but that's not going to be covered because that's an earthquake, isn't it? Land shock waves, that's shaking damage. So that would be covered though by an earthquake endorsement, right? Coming down here to 14,
Yeah.
the earthquake endorsement when added to your homeowner's policy, will that cover land shock waves? Of course it will. Shaking damage, earthquake damage, and damage caused by tremors, kind of all describing the same thing here, aren't they?
Yeah.
Right? But as you're looking at B, it's not going to cover flood and tidal wave damage to the home that was caused by an earthquake. Why? What did you need to have endorsed onto your policy for that damage to be
Flood.
covered? Flood. Exactly. Okay. Number 15. The main loss potential under a homeowner's policy is what?
Liability.
It's liability. Now, we didn't really directly talk about this a lot, but I did ask that question, how much can someone sue you for? And we said, there is no limit,
Right.
If they want to sue you, someone could sue me for 10 grand, right? Good luck collecting on me right now, but of course you could sue me for whatever the heck you want, right? But that's why we say that's the main loss potential. But here's the other way you could have got to the right answer here. Look at A, B, and D. One of these things is definitely not like the other. Out of A, B, C, and D, A, B, and D can all be classified as what?
Not covered.
Yeah, exclusions, right? Damage caused by rot, rust, mold, deterioration, and damage to land. These are all exclusions, are they not?
Yes.
Yeah. And guys, sometimes on this test, I'm just telling you right now, it's going to be easier to find things that aren't covered than the ones that are, right? As you're looking at all four of these answers, you're like, well, A, B, and D are all exclusions. I don't even care what C is, right? But using that test strategy I taught you very first thing this morning, one of these things is not like the other. You could have gotten to this right answer just as easy. Number 16, items covered in personal liability, section 2 of your homeowner's policy include all of the following there, includes only one of them. Which one is it?
D.
Yeah, it's D. And why did you eliminate A, B, and C? We made that really easy because of the first word in every single one of those other answers, right? Auto liability, not under section 2, right? Professional liability, not under section 2. Product liability, not under section 2, okay? Number 17, under the homeowner's policy, when will your insurance company stop paying their defense costs?
B.
Yeah, it's B. Remember I said, whatever it takes to defend you, right, to investigate all of that does not count towards your limit, but that goes away once the limit gets hit, okay? So when damage is paid by the insurance company equal the limits of liability, then that's it. They aren't going to defend you anymore. Number 18, which of the following is not covered under the liability section of a homeowner's policy?
D.
Why?
It has its own insurance.
We're not.
It's
It's whose motorcycle?
insured.
It's the insured's.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted you to pick up on here, right? Because we're talking about liability, and if it's owned by the insured, can liability cover it anyway? No, right? Damage to the insured's motorcycle can't be covered. Boat, maybe. Snowmobiles, maybe. Golf cart, maybe. You don't have enough information to say that none of those would ever be covered, but you know without a doubt that D would never be covered because you're talking about liability. Okay, that's what I wanted you to understand there. Number 19, coverage is provided in your property policy for the named insured and all of the following except for which one? Which one didn't even make any sense here? Yeah. People purchasing your property, yeah, they aren't automatically going to be covered as also an insured. But a lien holder, right, we said they have insurable interest, right? And also said in the event of death, a legal representative could be an insured, so that's covered here as well. And of course, resident relatives of the insured's household, absolutely. Number 20, which is true of medical payments, coverage F of your homeowner's policy. What's the right answer here?
C.
It provides coverage without regards to negligence. And that's what we love so much about it, right? Because now it doesn't matter who is at fault, doesn't matter who is negligent, they're ready to pay the check right now, right? That's one thing we just love about coverage F, at least that's what I do. I mean, there's no investigation, no court costs whatsoever. So number 21 then, the homeowner's coverage F, medical expenses to others, out of all 4 of those, wouldn't cover one of them. Which one is it? Why? The insured, right? Injuries to the insured and the insured's family cannot be covered by coverage F because coverage F is a what coverage? Liability, right? E and F are liability, and if it happened to the insured, it couldn't be covered by liability there, right? If the insured or their family gets injured, they're going to have to use their own health insurance policy to cover those kind of losses. Number 23. or I'm sorry, 22. In a homeowner's 2000 policy, when is an insured spouse not considered an insured?
When they reside somewhere else.
Yeah, when they're living separately, right? Because remember, in order to be an insured underneath your homeowners, they have to be a resident relative, right? Have to be living with you and they have to be related to you. In that case, that's not happening there, so they cannot be considered an insured. Number 23, which of the following would provide a detailed account of your liability coverage?
What are we on,
23. It's the insuring agreement. And guys, if you aren't familiar with that term, that's just what this is right here. It's what the insurance company agrees to do on your behalf, right? Underneath coverage G, what were they going to do? Pay up to that limits of liability and pay for your defense costs. What were they going to do underneath coverage F? They were going to pay for all medically necessary charges up to that limit right there. That's what the insuring agreements are, if you weren't familiar with that term. Number 24, under the mortgage clause of any property policy, all of the following are true except for which one?
C.
Yeah, dishonest acts of the insured voids the mortgagee's interest. How about no? Right? Just because the insured did something dishonest, the mortgagee is still going to have insurable interest and definitely will probably still want to get that fixed, right? Only underneath their coverage and not the insured's. Number 25, under a dwelling policy, all of the following are true except for which one?
D.
Because the special form doesn't cover for theft of personal property. How do we know that? What was the one thing I told you to remember about theft when it came to dwelling policies that you have to remember for this test? All dwelling policies excluded, right? It doesn't matter if it's the 1, doesn't matter if it's the 2, doesn't matter if it's the 3, which is what this is talking about right here. But all of them exclude theft coverage, don't they?
Is that the one where you have to buy the endorsement?
That's where you have to endorse it on with the broad form theft endorsement. That's absolutely correct, yep. Is this ringing a bell now, guys? Because I've seen questions on this test that are asking specifically about theft coverage under dwelling policies, and you just have to know it's not covered, right? That is something that is excluded unless you add on the contents coverage, at which time you may want to add in the broad form theft endorsement, okay? Number 26, which is not true of the DP3, the dwelling special form? Which one is not true? Does this matter? Did it matter that we were talking about the DP3 here?
Cracking
No.
of walls.
This will never be covered, period, guys. I don't care if this had said would be covered under an HO2 or under HO8, period. Covers damage because of cracking of walls. That will never be covered, period. Right? So I didn't want you to get wrapped up in the syntax of this question here, although you might have, right? You're like, oh crap, I don't remember what the dwelling special form is. Guys, it didn't matter. Right? But covers damage to the dwelling by a vehicle driven by the insured. That is vehicle damage. That is a basic named peril. So of course that should be covered. Covers theft losses of what? Building property. That's not personal property. Remember I said theft of building property, building parts would be covered under the 1, 2, or 3. And covers losses caused by both friendly, actually that should be unfriendly, sorry, that's a typo, and hostile fires. That is still true. It will cover losses, but it will never cover cracking of a wall. Number 27, which of the following is covered under the dwelling program? Underneath all 4 of those, there's only one of them that should actually be covered. Which one is it?
C.
But then I say collapse was always going to be an exclusion unless the collapse was caused by a
Okay.
covered peril. And is windstorm going to be a covered peril here? It absolutely is. But looking at A, B, and D though, y'all kind of see where I'm going with this? A, B, and D are all pretty common exclusions, aren't they? Right? Settling, cracking of walls, bulging of foundation. Remember how I said it's a lot easier sometimes to find the stuff that's not covered than the stuff that is. Number 28, which of the following is covered under your dwelling program?
C.
Theft of items attached to the occupied building under DP2 and DP3. Right? That's not under DP1. We said that's not covered under DP1, but DP1's the crappy one, right? But 2 and 3 did cover for theft losses as long as it was building property, right? Not personal property, but building property. That is absolutely going to be covered. But looking at A, B, and D here, once again though, guys, hopefully you're just looking at these. No way could it be covered for vandalism and malicious mischief. Why? Because the property was vacant over 60 days. That's an exclusion. Theft, we just went over 2 questions ago, is always an exclusion under dwelling policies. And loss caused by birds, rodents, and vermin, once again, an exclusion. So here, out 3 or 4 out of the last 5 questions, you got to the right answer, maybe not because you knew it, but you saw 3 of these other things that you knew couldn't be, right? And that is a tactic that you will be able to use on this exam. Number 29, which of the following is false under the dwelling broad form theft endorsement? We didn't really talk about this, but think about this. If a resident relative steals from another resident relative, what is that?
Just a family dispute.
A family dispute? You know what the insurance company would call that? An act of intent.
Oh,
And did I say intentional acts could ever be covered? No. Okay. So it would not cover theft by a resident relative, but
So is that any inter-resident theft? Like say,
any insured who steals from another insured, they would say that's an act of intent.
okay, so if there's like me and my 3 buddies live in the same apartment, even though we're not related, if one of them.
They're not an insured. Remember, if it's your buddy and they're not related to you,
Okay.
Right.
So, okay. So only
so
blood.
only when one insured steals from another. That
Okay.
can't be covered under, yeah, you're right. Okay, but then B, C, and D, absolutely true. Covers vandalism and malicious mischief resulting from theft? Sure. Yeah. The insured must notify the police in the event of a theft. We already said, absolutely, that's a crime. And it could pay on a fair share basis if other insurance applies. Of course it could. And the last one, mobile homeowners insurance can be written on all of the following except for which one?
D.
Yeah, when the structure is used primarily to run a mercantile business. Remember, you can run a business out of your mobile home, but if you're running a business where you're selling items, right, you're running a mercantile business, that's an exclusion, right? You're gonna need to find a different way to cover that. Now, one of the tricks though on this question is someone always chooses A, right? If it's designed for portability. What's the key word here that tells you that that's actually not the right answer?
Design.
Designed. Does it say it's portable right now?
No.
There you go. Right, you gotta read through the whole darn thing. Make sure you look for these contextual clues. Okay? Of course, in order for a mobile home to be covered, though, it does have to be permanently located. What were those 3 characteristics? Anyone remember what they were?
Down.
Tied down,
Skirted.
skirted, and
Wheels removed.
wheels removed. Nice job. Wheels tied down is what I said. All right.